slash petty revenge. Story 1. Do not want to control your dog bark. I will drive you to the brink of madness bark. Earlier this year, I took my sister and her family in. Bit of a story, but the short of it is that the property they were living on was sold out from under them because the owner thought $10,000 a month income from his properties wasn't enough. While we had smug satisfaction when that property was destroyed by a hurricane a few months down the road, that has not made certain aspects of her family living here any easier. They have several pets. Among them is a small, tiny dog that had spent a lot of time outside before they moved in bark. Let's call this dog Little Snot. Little Snot is not fixed, is food aggressive, and likes to mark the house when he is roaming and barking. As such, he is pretty much confined to one-room bark. And he barks, oh my God, he barks. It is not constant, except that it is once or twice a minute, unless everything is completely silent bark. The problem is that they will not actually train Little Snot to keep his yapper shut bark. They will just wait until they are annoyed enough to actually tell him to shut his snot locker bark. Of course, this just teaches him that it is okay to bark until they say something bark. Even then, he does not actually usually shut his yap until one of them gets up and actually does something, and that can take forever bark. I got tired of this and have stopped walking quietly, bark, bark. If it is morning and I have things to get done, I just about it normally bark, bark. They sleep late, so they end up waking up around 5 a.m. every day, bark. So of course he barks, bark, bark. This has been wonderful because it is slowly driving my sister mad bark. She has been getting on him sooner and sooner as time passes bark. But there is still the morning or evening where they just will not do anything about it. Bark. And it is beyond annoying bark. Right next to that bedroom's door is the door to the basement bark. I keep a doormat there because the basement is half basement and half crawl space, so there is usually a little bit of water or dirt that can get tracked upstairs bark. I have discovered that Little Snot goes absolutely ape shit when I straighten that doormat bark, bark, bark. They get on him really quick when this happens. Things are peaceful and relaxing right up until he hears another sound bark. So I go over and straighten the doormat again. Bark, bark, bark. You can hear my sister groan, "Oh my God, shut that dog up," and someone gets up and shuts his yap. I repeat this a few times every morning and evening. It has gotten to the point where they are considering a shock collar or swatting him and anything else to get him to stop, including rushing to get him fixed. She is finally getting to a point where she wants to actually train this dog to not bark at inside noises. I am pushing them to train the dog and get some peace while not actually doing anything. Story, you want to give me more work? All right, I will make your day worse. A few years ago, I was deployed in the United States Navy. I was a cook. For those who do not know, usually cooks in the military are overworked like most civilian cooks and usually have to go through a lot of BS when it comes to sanitary inspections. It was only me cooking at the time, in a night shift. I had a team of 3, 1 cook and 2 attendants, and the day shift had over 6 cooks and 9 attendants. We had a big inspection coming up, and we were out to sea. We had to deep clean the whole galley. Now, here is the fun part. The day shift supervisor said that I needed to deep clean the ovens, grills, and kettles, basically everything we use to cook. But what got me mad was that the night shift hardly ever touched any of that, because our main focus was to cut preparation for the next day. We had a big day the next day, so what they were asking was way too much, even if you did not take any breaks. I asked them if they could take some of the items, and they said no, because night shift never did anything anyway. Bet. I purposely left all the deep cleaning for last, instead of starting as soon as I came in. Me and my team cut what we needed to cut and took care of our own stuff. And I waited until almost the very end of breakfast to start cleaning. I took all the oven racks and put them in the big kettles to boil the black stuff out of it. And then I started cleaning the grill. With the grill being cleaned, the ovens with no oven racks, and all the kettles being used, They had no chance of putting a meal on time. When lunch was about to start, that is when I decided to finish my cleaning. There was no food at all to serve the customers, and my supervisors got mad at me. The executive officer of the ship came down to galley to see what happened, and my supervisors told him that it was all my fault. He then asked me my side of the story. I told him what happened, and he asked them if it was true, and when they nodded, he called them stupid and cussed them out and dismissed me. Felt so good. Story 3. Police will not do anything when I call. Then, I will just get you to call them on yourself. Too long, did not read. I put jam under the handles of a badly parked van. The owner called the police, and they told him to move the van. For the past several weeks and months, we have had the same large van parked in the entranceway to our flats on a daily basis. To list, it was on double yellows, at the end of a junction, in front of a dropped curb, blocking the footpath, blocking the vision of us residents when pulling out, blocking the entry for large vehicles, and also right in front of a no parking sign. I called the police multiple times about it, but to no avail, so I decided to try a different method. When the van was once again parked in its usual spot, I went down with my jar of jam and smeared it over the handle of the driver door. A while later, I see the owner pacing around the van on his phone, and not long after the police showed up, and he showed them the vandalism, followed by the police leaving and him moving his van. He hasn't been back since. Story 4. Park and driveway ? Get stuck for 2 weeks. This is a story I heard from a friend today, and knew that this subreddit was the perfect place for it. Just for context, my friend's house has a small driveway but large bushes on either side of it. It is on a street right next to a very popular park. On the 4th of July, the park was packed and street parking was hard to find. He was away, and when he came back to his house, some Karen had parked in his driveway. He decided to park, blocking his driveway completely in his rarely used car. He then went inside and soon heard a knock at his door. It was the Karen. She demanded that he would let her car out this very instant. He said that she stomped to exaggerate every syllable. He closed the door in her face. She called the police, and they said that he was parked legally in his own driveway. She got a ride with someone, super angry. The Karen apparently said that if he did not move it by the morning, she would call her lawyer. In the morning, she came back and demanded the car be let out and complained about Ubers. The Karen let it slip that it was a rental car and that she was visiting family and something along the lines of the kids need my car to get around. They will be super sad. My friends shut her out. For the next 2 weeks, she came by daily, screaming at him. The Karen was supposed to leave 2 days after the 4th, but had to extend her stay just to get the car. He eventually moved the car, but then called a towing company to tow her car and informed her of it. A couple of months ago, she sent a bill to them for the hotel. Her family kicked her out after a week, the rental car, the impound cost, and food at some of the most expensive places in town. It was over $5,000. It went in the bin. I just thought this was so funny and that I had to post it here. I guess she learned her lesson. Do not park in strangers' driveways.